Soundstripe.
Episode of Blockbusters, a classic movie podcast, where if you're like us and you miss the days of packed movie theaters and movie stories, and this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Caleb Suggs, joined with me by my co-host, Dakota Lowry.
What's up, guys?
And Ernie Ferguson.
Have you ever heard of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates? Morons.
Dang, I didn't even write that one down. I didn't write that one down. Dadgummit.
I didn't have that one down either.
We're gonna have it on. We're gonna have some Vegas lines on whatever I'm going to say.
I was just thinking that. That's what we need. We need a bet on this.
So what'd you think? What'd you think, Dakota? What would you think I was going to say?
Oh man, I had a ton of them. Get used to disappointment was what was up there. Anybody want a peanut? Yes, you're very smart. Shut up. there was a few of them on here. Oh man!
I just thought you were gonna go inconceivable.
That's just
I had that one on there.
That's what I wanted to say, but it was just. I mean, it's 2 point. The one I really laughed. I found out that I didn't remember, and I kind of laughed at was when it was Indigo, Fezzik, and Wesley. They were at the top of the castle looking in, going over the plan, and Indigo says, "Let me explain." He said, "No, this is too much. Let me sum up." And I just kind of thought that made me chuckle just because of how he put it. So, but there were other ones too, but you know. But
yeah, I didn't think it would be I didn't think it would be inconceivable because you don't usually do the big line from the movie that everybody knows.
That's not the big line from the movie. The big line from the movie is,
for me it is. But as you wish, that's
as you wish. Yeah.
I think for women that's the big line. I think for guys, I think it's inconceivable.
I was thinking the big line was, "Hello, my name is Inigo, but whatever."
Inigo Montoya.
You killed my father. Prepared. That's what I always,
Prepared to die. That's again. As we get into this movie, it is a very, very, very quotable.
Oh, it's 100. I did not realize. I think going back to Suggs, you said this about a movie we had a couple. I think it was about The Usual Suspects, but I did not realize how many like pop culture references were in this movie. Even like that's what I was just telling my wife about. It was the wedding, marriage. We are gathered here today, and I did not realize that Michael Scott does that in The Office. And I think at Jim and Pam's wedding, and I didn't realize that that's what it was from.
That was one of them that crossed my mind too, just because, us not being from Great Britain didn't know how funny of this comedian this actor was. He turns around, I can imagine anybody that's British was like just dying, waiting to hear him, and just it. That's just like how in the audience do you keep a straight face when this guy is talking like that? I don't know.
Well,
oh no.
Back in for another episode of Blockbusters, and if you can't tell, we are doing The Princess Bride, 1987. So this is Dakota's pick for this week. And tell me again why you picked this.
Well, I really think like anybody who kind of keeps up with pop culture in general really needs to watch this movie. Just to kind of understand where some of the references come from, some of the and I think like Ferg said that it's one of the most, I believe, quoted movies just across TV shows and movies and stuff like that. And I think it's important to know where that stuff comes from. And I think really that's not. I didn't really pick it because I thought this was just a great movie. I also picked it because it's one that I had on my list to watch for a while, and I wanted to watch it.
That's one thing I like about Dakota's choices is that it's one choice. He's choosing movies that he wants to watch, and I have to. I'm like, ooh, I'm like, I want to watch this, or I want to make y'all like this. So we're gonna that's like the usual suspects. Like, I'm gonna make y'all like this movie, so we're gonna watch it.
I think Dakota just wanted me to waste an hour and a half of my life. Is why he picked this movie.
Hey, I was really close. Look, I got about as close to Forrest Gump as I could get without picking Forrest Gump, because the only semblance of this is you have Jenna who plays the Princess Bride. Okay,
No, Jenny's a much worse character than Buttercup
she
is.
is. She
Yes,
is.
yes.
That's for a different time and a different place. We'll talk. Well, we can whatever that day comes.
Yeah, we'll
We
get
can
into
talk
that.
about how awful Jenny is.
We were sitting there and watching the movie, and my wife said, "She is. She really is a pretty lady." And I said, "Well, yeah, when she's not playing a character who has AIDS and is on coke all the time, she really is a pretty lady."
Well, that's the fascinating thing how they talked about how they casted Robin Wright for this. The guy who wrote it and Rob Reiner, the director, were looking for somebody to play this character, and somehow she showed up to do her audition. And I think the guy who wrote it, Goldman, I think is his last name. They open the door and like whenever you see her at before she gets married to Humperdinck, has that light behind her, and he said he saw her and he said, this is who I want, and
Hmm.
it was just one of those. And again, I don't know if that's Hollywood magic talking, but that's a something that I've heard constantly a story about how Robin Wright got that part.
Well, The Princess Bride is a 1987 American fantasy adventure comedy film directed and co-produced by Rob Reiner and starring Carrie. How do you say his last name? I never get it
Ellis
right. Ellis, Mandy Pack.
Patinkin.
Is it Patinkin or is it
Patinkin, I
Patikin?
think it's Patinkin.
One of these days, we're gonna get a movie where people are like Jesse Rogers or something is the name. I don't know. Chris Sarandon, Christopher Guest, Wallace Shawn, Andre the Giant, shout out, and Robin Wright. Adapted by William Gowan from his 1973 novel, it tells the story of a swashbuckling farmhand named Wesley, accompanied by companions befriended along the way, who must rescue his true love, Princess Buttercup, from the odious Prince Humperdinck. This movie came out in 1987. It grossed 30.9 million at the box office on a budget of 16 million, and it has a Rotten Tomato score of 87, I think.
Yeah, what?
I think it's got a
Um,
Rotten Tomato score of 87.
that is
The
not on. That,
96 is what I'm looking at.
Oh,
And
okay,
the
okay. Yeah, you're right, 96. Okay.
yeah.
I wasn't looking at it. For some
no,
reason, I
you
had
you
looked at
were
it. I had looked at it before.
you
Maybe,
were putting your opinion on there is what
no,
you were
no,
doing.
shoot, no. If my Rotten Tomato score would definitely not be 87. I guess I was thinking of the year. I don't know. But anyways, this is my first time to actually watch the movie. Like, just sit down and watch it. I've seen pieces of it, and
Hmm.
obviously, from like Dakota said, there's a lot of quotes and stuffs that you hear in
Hmm.
pop culture through everything else. I'm gonna poke fun at Dakota or just the movie in general, but it's really not that bad. I think because I mean, look, this is a. It's not really. I don't really say it's not a woman movie. It's more of a kid movie. Because
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
what I was thinking when I was watching it.
like I love me a good rom com. So, but this to
And
me
that's
this is more of a kids movie,
I said more of
and
like a teenager.
I would think more of like a 10-year-old.
Yeah,
So
man,
yeah.
but the swamp forest or whatever the forest of fire or whatever I can't remember what it's called. Man, as a young kid,
yeah,
that's
That's what nightmares are made of.
yeah.
but my point being, I think if I had watched this when I was 10 or so, I would probably have fonder memory as opposed to watching it for the first time when I'm 28. I would
Yeah.
probably think different of it. But it's not really something I thoroughly enjoyed. But I mean, it's not a bad movie.
The thing about the one thing I like about this is two stories in one. Your big
Hmm.
stars are not in the swashbuckling. Peter Falk, the granddad, and Fred Savage, the little kid. Those are the
Hmm.
two big stars that coming into this movie. The
Hmm.
rest of them, they're nobody's heard. Andre the Giant probably is the next biggest star. You know,
Yeah,
so
at
as
this
far as
point, yeah.
actor wise, the father and the grandfather and his grandson are the big stars, which I think makes for a really good story because you look at it, it is this story that's being told, and you don't get in the story itself doesn't get weighed down with stars, you
Yeah.
know.
It's funny you mentioned Peter Falk. As we were like halfway through the movie, every time that they would show him, I'm like, I know who is this, and it
Yeah.
took me forever. And I look it up. I'm like, oh, it's Columbo.
When
Yeah.
he's starting looking for his glasses at the end, he's going, well, I'll be, that is the Columbo character
Yeah,
that
I mean
kind of
his
comes out.
that's what it wasn't really his face; it was his mannerisms.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And I was like, that's 100% Columbo. Dakota probably doesn't know who Columbo is,
No clue.
but uh,
he is your detective that everybody thinks he's a fumbling, bumbling idiot, but there's a method to his madness. But everybody thinks he's screwing things up until the very end when he solves it. Yeah, it's always one more thing, and then that one more thing is usually what gets people. So I mean, it's a pretty good show back in I guess it was the late
70s.
'70s, early '80s.
1971 is when the
Yeah,
first season came out.
that
Wow.
Dad's been watching it lately, which I mean, I like it. So, but
Here's
anyways,
here's a crazy thing also about casting wise. Andre the Giant, they almost didn't get Andre the Giant. And a couple of
Yeah.
things. He had a contract with WWF at that time, and he was set to go to Japan, like on a super like duper like big contract. Like somebody had mentioned like 5 million for WWF. Um, and so they started going other directions. Like one of the names, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, was one of the names that got passed around. But you know, I think Andre the Giant ended up having back surgery. That's why if you watch the movie, you literally don't see Andre the Giant doing any heavy lifting at all because he couldn't because of his back.
Hmm.
And like whenever he catches Buttercup, when she jumps out off the castle, she's on a crane, and so that's why again you don't see him whenever he's carrying Wesley. You can tell it's a dummy that he's carrying because again
Hmm.
he couldn't, and he is, I want to say he's French. And so
Yeah.
another thing is Rob Reiner recorded all of his lines and put it on tape. So Andre the Giant was listening and basically kind of spitting out what Rob Reiner had recorded for him. So
Hmm.
that makes what Andre the Giant, other than like he has marbles in his mouth worse than I do, and it's but it makes it even more impressive with what he did because he's not an actor. I mean, he's an entertainer, but he wasn't an actor.
Hmm.
I don't know what you're talking about. I watched that man carry 3 people up the side of a mountain on a rope. Okay,
Yes.
so
Hand over hand.
he was doing plenty of heavy lifting in
Yes,
this movie.
you also saw the Dread Pirate Roberts fly up a rope, and then all of a sudden, whenever it closed up, whenever they were taking the shot from the top of the cliff, he couldn't move at all, and he needed help from Indigo to climb up that rope. So yeah, movie magic is what that was.
There were a few things in this movie that I saw that I was like, okay, well,
You
like
know
like
that,
it just didn't make
It's a
sense.
it's a 1980s PG Disney movie. What
but
did you expect?
Yeah.
but there's also something to say about it because it is retelling of a story. So some of the campy parts, like the shrieking eels or whatever, and
Hmm.
the rodents are of unusual sizes. They're people, but and the stones they don't look real, but you're telling a story from a book, and so that actually the cheapness or the campiness can fly. Now, if we didn't have the grandfather and the son reading the book, and it was just straight Princess Bride, no book. Now, to
Yeah, it
me,
wouldn't have.
that makes it that's going. Oh man, that's really awful. But
See, and see, that's not even what I was talking about. I was just talking about like some of the movie magic stuff, like when they're climbing up and they get to the top of the mountain with a rope. Like it's just a rope just wrapped around a rock. I'm like,
I mean, how did it get there to begin with?
yeah, like are people regularly climbing this? And I mean, Andre the Giant's pretty big, and that rope looked pretty small in his hands. Like I don't think many people are just climbing that rope.
Or like whenever Dread Pirate Roberts in that duel, he jumps and he does his spin and he lands. You can tell like there's dirt and a rectangle that the pad's on that he lands
Yeah,
on.
May
But
pointed that out to me.
but again, that's one of those things you can get after that for the little stuff like that.
Oh yeah, but I mean, it's you also got to take though. It's 1987. You don't have CGI. I mean, you only have practical effects, and this movie only had a budget of what, like 16 million is what you said. I mean, it's not like they had just a huge budget just to go out and do crazy things with.
And that's one of the things I think I remember looking at this when it didn't make as much money because I don't think they knew how to advertise it. Uh, they were
Yeah.
trying to sell it as a kids movie, but some of the taglines that they used were like ridiculous. Like you're like, okay, I don't need to go take my kids necessarily to this, and so that's where I think when it's this is one of those movies. It's truly, I think, a cult classic type of movie
Hmm.
that gained its fame or its infamy afterwards. And that's kind of where you get it, where people fell in love with it. I never saw this movie in the movie theater. Never did. It was just a VHS or DVD is the only thing I've seen it on, and so and that's one thing coming into this. I came into this to hammer the movie because I didn't want to go down the memory lane of, oh, this is such a great movie because I remember it that way. I
Hmm.
came in really trying to with a suspicious eye on it. So that's as we kind of go through this, that's kind of what I kind of did when I was watching this.
Well, a grandfather reads a novel to his sick grandson, who initially dismisses the story. The book is about Buttercup, a young woman living on a farm in the fictional kingdom of Florin. Whenever she tells farmhand Wesley to do something, he always complies, saying, "As you wish." The two fall in love, and Wesley leaves to seek his fortune overseas so they can marry. However, Wesley is presumed dead after his ship is attacked by the dread pirate Roberts.
So there's a quote in this opening scene here between the grandfather and the son, where Fred Savage looks at him and says, hold on. Where's the sports in this? Is this a kissing book? And I said, this is Caleb Suggs right here looking at me, asking why we have to watch this movie.
But this also, if this isn't the epitome of the '80s, Mom comes in. She has like a mullet ponytail. I mean, just
Hmm.
the way. I mean, just the way she has in. He's playing Atari. I know y'all don't have a clue what Atari is, but I geeked out when I saw they were playing RBI baseball on the Atari. I was like, oh, yes, that's give me. I don't need this PlayStation 5 where I have one, two, three, four buttons here. I got two buttons or four buttons on my fingertips. I got two joysticks. Just give me one joystick and one button. Let me just sit there and button mash. I'm like, yeah. And then you have the Refrigerator Perry poster on the wall too. So I was like, yep, this is the '80s. You like it.
Okay, Grandpa. Wait. Oh,
Just
look,
because you
look.
don't have any memories of anything, don't sit there and oh grandpa, oh boomer me. I mean,
Well, I think when we were young, my parents had an Atari. Uh, Especially when we were moving around a lot in the late '90s, we had an Atari because we just never. I mean, we were in the military, so we moved cross country several times, and things get lost. So you don't really want to
yeah,
buy an expensive gaming system,
yeah,
just for it to get lost in shipping from North Carolina to Alaska.
yeah. I'll tell you what, Wesley is only in love with beauty because Buttercup treated him like crap all the time. I'm
Yeah,
like, dude, I said, you ain't got no money. She ain't interested in you. I mean, somehow he wore her down. I don't know, but I'm
which
like,
this definitely reminds me of like Holes. I guess
hmm.
would be the movie where we were growing up because I think the same thing happens in there and somewhere in that movie, isn't it? But it isn't As You Wish, isn't it? The I Can Fix That.
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea
Yeah,
where you were going with that. I was like,
yeah.
holes.
Well, yeah. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something about the daughter,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
granddaughter in it.
It was the flashback, but that woman actually loved him, but it was because it was in a time where
Well, I mean,
wh-
yeah, but
white and
still,
black wasn't socially acceptable.
I know that, but it was still the same. It's just same. Like that's kind of what it reminded me of when I was watching the movie. I was like, I've seen this before, like in another movie somewhere.
I was very confused where you were going with that. It's like holes.
I mean, it happened in it. I remember it.
Hey, there you go.
5 years
Also,
later, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
you're good. I also you have to remind yourself that my wife knows that we do the podcast, and she knows that we were watching this movie for the podcast. So she is constantly throughout the movie calling things out. That's the only thing he says in the movie. That's the only thing he says. You need to say this. You need to say that in the podcast. And I'm like, Kamei, I don't know that I'm going to
We
remember all this.
we just need a Kamei moment. Just have a one time where she steps in. This is your Kamei moment for the movie, and just let her
Yeah.
just let her have Kamei. You have 1 minute, just 1 minute. That's all you get because
No,
we run long
no,
anyways
no,
because they let me talk.
no, no. If Kamei comes in here, she's never leaving,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
we
You're right.
we will never get done with this podcast. We'll be recording until next week. Five.
Sorry.
she's,
Go ahead.
she's,
Sorry.
she's gonna
She's
kill me.
going to. Oh, man.
5 years later,
There may be some special editing on this one.
Yeah. If there's a sudden jump in this audio.
5 years later, Buttercup is forcibly betrothed to Florence Prince Humperdinck. Before the wedding, she is kidnapped by three outlaws: a small Sicilian man named Vizzini, a giant from Greenland named Fezzik, and a Spanish fencing master named Inigo Montoya, who seeks revenge against a six-fingered man who murdered his father. A masked man in black pursues them, as does Prince Humperdinck and his soldiers.
Which notice that like Andre the Giant put like the Vulcan death grip on on Buttercup because he put his hand around her neck and then all of a sudden she went bonk and she was
Yeah.
out. I was like, okay, I know he's strong, but he barely even
Uh,
grabbed her right there, but she was
Pe-
out.
People get knocked out very easily in this movie. That's something
Very
that I
easily.
picked. At one point, this is going a little bit ahead, but at one point, the Man in Black knocks out Fezzik, Andre the Giant, with a sleeper hold where he doesn't even have his arm around his neck. It's around his face. And I'm like, dang, man, he's
Maybe
got some.
he cut all oxygen off to his brain at that point in time. But I like the boat scene too because there's a
Hmm.
couple of things. It really truly sets up the relationship between the three. Between
Hmm.
Vizzini and Fezzik and then Inigo. Because that was one of my quotes too. Was when Vizzini said to Fezzik, said, "Am I going mad, or did the word think escape your lips?"
Yeah. I had
and
that one no down.
then
And
also Inigo always looking back, saying, "I think there's somebody behind us." Inconceivable, and just no. I think he's really catching up with again
Hmm.
how smart he is, but he's actually an idiot, and
yes.
that's that's
And then
that's perfect.
for some random reason, Andre the Giant is just this rhyming master.
Yeah,
Yeah. He
which
is.
again, you're trying to figure out if you don't have the closed captions on what is he saying, but yet they're saying rhymes. I'm like, what are the words that are coming out of your mouth? I have a hard time
Hmm.
hearing that.
Yeah, Andre the Giant was definitely not known in wrestling for his mic skills.
No, that's why you
That's
always had a
No.
manager.
that's why I always had a manager.
I
But
think I wrote down on here when when Vizzini called him the hippopotamic landmass. I was laughing so hard at him, but I'm like, but I think it really does kind of go to show his character, like how arrogant his character actually was.
Yeah.
yes, I laugh at all the things he said were inconceivable because I'm like, that's really not that inconceivable.
Which again, I mean, watching this movie again, I didn't realize how much of the film he was not in, because he made
Yeah.
such a big impact. That's the one of the characters I remember the most, And then I'm like, oh man, he gone already. I was like, man, I thought we were gonna have more. That's an
Hmm.
impact that I mean, he made a big impact on the movie.
He really did. Let me tell you, I think I think I'd watched this movie once before with Kamei, maybe when we were dating or something. I can't remember, but I only remembered all the way up to the swamp forest or whatever it is, the fire
Hmm.
forest, swamp fire, whatever it is. That's like the first hour of the movie, and we got to there and all that happened, and I paused it and I was like, oh, there's still another hour and 15 minutes left, and what's going to happen? Like,
Yeah,
but
that
that I
that
think that's how much his character and his role that played
Yeah,
in it like stood out because the rest of the movie I didn't really remember, but I very vividly remember everything up to that point.
yeah.
Yeah, it did confuse me as like a first time watcher out because I was thinking the movie was going to be about him chasing and rescuing her, and then that happens in like the first 40 minutes, and I'm like, oh, what's the rest of the movie going to be about? But
Yeah, I mean, it was real quick. It was like, wow, you know. Oh, that sounds like me sometimes. You know, so
I'm sure, he's okay. He's my he's my son. He's tough.
He has to be tough, right?
Yes. Well, anyways, atop the cliffs of insanity, the man in black defeats Inigo in a fencing duel, knocks him out, chokes Fezzik into unconsciousness, and tricks Vizzini into drinking a deadly poison. He forcibly flees with Buttercup. But Buttercup correctly guesses he is the dread pirate Roberts, rebukes him for killing Wesley, and shoves him into a gorge. While tumbling down, he shouts, "As you wish." Realizing the man is Wesley, Buttercup throws herself into the gorge after him, and they are reunited. Um, so yeah, this whole paragraph, everything that happens is definitely my favorite part of the movie.
Oh,
Um,
for
I
sure.
know that just this paragraph. I'm like, that's way too short. That's way
Oh
too
yeah,
short with what
there's
there,
happened.
way too much that took place in this.
yeah. So we start climbing up onto the cliffs where we meet Great Value Zorro, and then
And they are flying up that cliff too. I mean, son, it's like
Oh yeah,
hand over hand over hand over hand. They are going.
I'm
and then they
impressed. I
cut
mean, I
the
really was impressed by how they did that. Like he was going up way too quickly, and I'm like, this is 1986, 1987 when they're filming this. Like, I really wanted to know how they, if they just green screened it or what. Like, it was impressive how they filmed it.
That's they probably had a rope and just had them like a harness, just pulled them up. Because funny, yet another funny Vinzini talk when he starts talking about, can't you go faster? And like Fezzik was like saying, I'm carrying myself and three people. Well, hurry up. That's
Yeah.
again, that's funny. But like I think I've sat here and tried to figure out what I thought was the best scene, and this is one of them. The scene between Inigo and the Dread Pirate Roberts.
yeah,
Just,
Hmm.
I
I
mean, like
agree.
the politeness. Well, that's the politeness with almost everybody except Vizzini. Almost all the bad guys were polite too. You know, and so you have him. I'll wait for you. I'll let you catch your breath. All that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. That. I like that. That was good.
And
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
I think that was the most humorous part to me during that whole thing where he's just like, I was just like, man, like you could have just kicked him off the cliff and went on about your day, but like here you are, help to throw it, like loosening the rope up to throw down to pull him up to you, just so you could fight him like a man, you know?
well,
Yeah.
and it's part to show that I mean these aren't really the bad guys. Well, I mean Vizzini is, but Fezzik and Inigo are not. They're just hired hands, literally trying to make
Hmm.
ends meet, is what he says while he hunts down this six-fingered guy.
That was one of the there's not a lot of money in revenge. That was one of the
Yeah,
quotes I wrote down.
and
Yeah.
it's a good point. I mean, so and then pretty good fencing or swordplay. I mean, pretty good for a PG
Well,
Disney movie in 1987. Pretty
I
good.
they
think,
said that they practiced for like 3 months before. I mean, to do that right-handed and left-handed, and look. I mean, yes, it was
oh yeah,
choreographed, but still, to do that right-handed and left-handed and look like a real thing was
you know
impressive.
what you're doing, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, it did crack me up when they do the little acrobatics, and then he's got so one does a flip, so the other one's got to do a flip, but he's got to throw his sword down first, and I'm like, okay, let's throw my sword down. Let me do a flip.
Yep.
Well, the Dread Pirate Roberts, which, by the way, names, and then we get Dread Pirate Roberts. I mean, you have,
Yeah.
you have Rugen, you have Buttercup, you have Humperdinck, Vincenti,
Hmm.
Inigo, Dread Pirate Roberts. I mean, that's like I'm Dread Pirate Bob Smith, but
Yeah.
I thought that was funny. Also, just his name, period.
Yeah, how mundane it seemed compared to everything else.
Yeah.
So then we get to the Andre the Giant. So it's like the three trials. We get to Andre the
Hmm.
Giant where he realizes his way is not very sportsmanlike. So he gives him a chance, and then Dredge Pirate Roberts chokes him out with a chokehold that's not around his neck, which is
Which
impressive.
that makes me wonder. if Andre the Giant were healthy, what kind of scene they could have had with him. But
Hmm.
I mean, because you could tell they protect him, even whenever they showed him with him choking him out. I mean, you could only see from Andre the Giant's chest up, so you could definitely tell that they
Hmm.
were trying to protect him there. And that which is kind of sad because he was in very rough shape. I mean, his life was rough anyways, but he was in very rough physical shape at that point in time when they filmed the movie. But it's awesome to hear the people talk about that filmed the movie around him, like what a sweetheart he actually was,
Hmm.
especially for a guy, good Lord, that's just huge. His hands, oh my
Oh
dear
yeah,
Lord in
just
heaven.
straight baseball mitts. I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, when he ever had his hands around like Robin Wright, or even when he had him around Carrie Ellis, dragging him around, holding when he was palming his head to keep his head up, I'm just like, good gravy. Those are some
oh
Kanaka
yeah.
sausage fingers he's got there. That's just around the guy's head.
I think this thing right here says he was a 7'4" and 520 pounds when he filmed this movie.
Golly, he's just a monster
I
of a
mean
man.
that's a massive man, man, dude. Like, I mean, 7'4" is tall in general. I mean, we're all pretty tall guys in general, but 7'4" is tall.
7'4" is tall in general.
Yeah, that's basically tall.
it's a,
Well,
that's a little tall.
But you know
ah,
what I like also at this point in time too, when we go back to the second part of the story, which is the grandfather and the son. This is where the son's he was all like, this is so boring. So again,
hmm.
imagine Caleb having a book read to him, and now all of a sudden, now they're talking about sword play, talking about fencing, and he's like, oh hey, wait, there's violence, let's
Hmm.
let's go, that you could see the kids' interest being brought up. I liked how that built up along with the fencing and the fighting scenes.
Yep.
Then we get to my favorite part of the movie, which is the battle of wits between Dread Pirate Roberts and Vicini, where we get to see a visual description of what overthinking, if overthinking was a person. Just him
Oh
going through
yes.
his whole spiel and then the best part to me, because I didn't see this coming and it made me laugh, was he switches the cups and I'm thinking, oh okay, he actually put the cups because he knew he would switch them, and then they drink and then at the end he's like, oh, I put poison in both of them, I've just built up
I
I've
just
built
built
up a
up the
tolerance.
immunity.
I'm
Yep.
like, that's so random, that's not even about.
Well, that's
I
like
mean, it's
that.
smart though.
No, it is smart, but I just like, I was expecting it to be more of like, oh, I knew he was going to switch it, so I put it, and then he's like, oh yeah, I put poison in both of them. I
Well, I
just
mean,
built up immunity.
that's where you have the motor of quotes. That's the Plato, Aristotle, Socrates. Never start a
Hmm.
land war in Asia, but worst of all, don't challenge a Sicilian in a game of death or something like that. And Ka-dunk. I mean, then he just kills over. I mean, that was that was good. And you know what? Again, you're talking about for kids. I mean, when Humperdinck comes back, he's Vizini's body's still there. So I
Yeah,
mean, like,
and he's just
I mean,
full laid out.
I mean, you see Inigo. Inigo's gone. They can't find his body. They can't find Fezzik's body, but Vizini's there. So you're like, oh, Wesley really did kill him. I mean, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, that's which again, going back to bad guys, Humperdinck's like method of going through. Well, they started a great sword fight that started here. He just starts talking about what a great hunter he was. Here they fought a giant, and the giant fell down, and it was interesting to see him, you know, like just kind of go around like a peacock with
Hmm.
everything. It really kind of was funny.
All right.
Yeah, I really was kind of impressed by all of that. Like, because I mean, there are people in real life who can actually do stuff like that. That like go and look at tracks and be like, ah, this is kind of what happened here. And I mean, even at like police scenes and stuff, but like even they're like just seeing that, I'm like, if you were actually able to do that and to track people like that, that would be pretty impressive to know.
Yeah,
And I
but
think
this
I
is
think it kind of goes to show maybe his character of like the skill set that I don't know, maybe the skill set that he had. Hmm.
yeah, because I mean they mentioned what a great hunter he was and
Yeah,
all
that's what
that
it
kind of
was.
stuff.
Yeah.
But then also this is also the time where again we get to the kissing scene, You know, and the grandfather was like,
Hmm.
"Nah, you don't want to hear that." And he was like, "No, no, I kind of want to hear that." So little Caleb gets interested in the kissing scene in the book, so we're good.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
Well,
speaking of which, something that we're completely blowing by here. This was a steep hill that they just tumbled down.
Yeah, that I
And,
mean,
like,
and, and Buttercup like swan dived onto it. I'm like, oh man, I was watching it, go, man, that stunt. Both those stunt people, they
I
didn't
feel
get paid
horrible.
enough because they were.
I was like, man, like, there's no way neither one of these, there's no way two average people fell down this hill just, willy nilly like that and didn't break a limb or something. Like, there's no way that it happened. I was sitting there watching this, like, man, this is a long hill. We're 30 seconds into this fall.
And they
Like,
kept on going and going and going. You're like, oh
hmm.
man, that has to hurt.
And then they just get up like they're fine and go on to the fire swamp.
well, while making their way through the fire swamp to avoid Humperdinck and his soldiers, Wesley explains how Dread Pirate Roberts is an inherited title that he assumed when the previous Roberts retired. Having found Buttercup, Wesley intends to retire himself and pass on the title to someone else. Humperdinck captures the pair after they emerge from the fire swamp. Buttercup agrees to return with Humperdinck after he promises to release Wesley. Humperdinck secretly orders his sadistic vizier, Court Rugen, to take Wesley to his torture chamber, the Pit of Despair. Wesley notices that Rugen has 6 fingers on his right hand. Rugen knocks Wesley unconscious.
Which goes back to when he knocks him unconscious, goes back to one of those the people fall out very easily. Because I mean, it's literally just like a bonk on the head with the hilt of his sword, and he just falls over.
Yeah, that is a convenient. That's the third person that's been knocked out. There's Buttercup, there was Inigo, and now Wesley all knocked
Well,
unconscious.
four if you include Andre.
Oh yeah, he was choked out MMA
Hmm.
style. But yeah, the fire swamp. This is part of the movie that I was like, eh. The one thing that I kind of liked though was like when first she got her dress caught on fire, which never looked singed the rest of the movie. But then they were just casually
Yep.
walking, and they're tung, 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 and he just grabs her and moves her over as the fires go up. But yeah, that was the fire swamp was. I was like, okay, that's
Yeah,
great.
the
We'll
one
get
the
over
one
No.
this.
part one part of the fire swamp I thought was funny was when he was getting eaten by this monster rodent, and she's just sitting there like watching,
Doing absolutely
like
nothing.
not trying to kick it or nothing. I mean, she's just. I mean, this is the supposed love of her life. Who, by the way, if it was the love of her life, I feel like just the mask. You would still need to know who that is. But
That was
that's
yeah.
beside the point. But you're sitting here watching the love of your life getting eaten by a monster, and you're
Hmm.
just sitting here watching
And there
it.
is a sword available.
Yeah, even that's one of the things that Kamei said. She was like, if we were in that scenario, I would at least be pulling it off the top of you. You're doing something, Like she said, this is the most frustrating part because she literally just stands there and does nothing while this dude's getting his arm chewed off.
She is a damsel in distress. She is not supposed to do that type of stuff.
Nah.
Again, worthless character that Robin Wright's playing.
Hmm. And then there's the whole quicksand thing where she
Yeah,
just like falls in the quicksand like it's water and like goes head first into or goes
then he just
what but head deep.
then he just takes that vine and goes, "Hey, let's go, let's climb back up." I'm like, okay. Which I get now. How many movies or cartoons have you seen stuff with quicksand? And have you ever personally seen quicksand?
Oh, never.
No,
I've
never.
never in my life. See, I don't even know where to find quicksand, but yet
But
that's one of the major things as a kid
Hmm.
I was scared to death of
I've
because
also never seen a movie or a TV show with quicksand where they actually just straight fell into it. Usually,
Yeah, it's
it's
always
like
been a slow.
slow. It's not actually quick. You're like slowly, and while they're looking around trying to find something. So, I guess that was different. It was actually quicksand for once.
I mean, it actually was quick. But I think that's kind of what influences us as kids. Is like there's two things that stand out to my mind as kids. Like I always remember if somebody said if quicksand ever happens, like find a rope or something to grab onto to pull yourself out of it with. And then the other thing was the like stop, drop, and roll if you catch on fire, as if we're going to catch on fire very often. But I was just like, man, like I don't know. I think, and this might have a part in where a lot of like millennials and older Gen Zers like have this idea of quicksand that we were supposed to be so afraid of it was from this movie. I thinking that it was something that we were going to regularly encounter, and if you just step into it, well, oh well, bye, you're gone.
Well, when Buttercup threatens to fatally stab herself if the wedding happens, Humperdinck falsely promises to find Wesley for her. His real plan is to start a war with the neighboring country of Gilder by killing Buttercup and framing Gilder for it. Humperdinck had a secretly hired Vizzini to kill Buttercup, but Wesley interfered. Meanwhile, Fezzik becomes part of the Brute Squad ordered to clear the thieves' forest before the wedding. He finds a drunken Ego living in the forest, whom he sobers up and tells about Rugen. Ego says that he and Fezzik need Wesley's help to storm the castle.
So let's go back to Rugen. First you have the pit of despair and the albino in there that starts going like this and goes, and then he
Yeah.
gets into his normal voice because he couldn't do that anymore. But now this is for science. Tell me how you feel. Again, he's being kind to him. That was just 1 year off your life. Again,
Hmm.
remember this is also the doctor from that was on A Few Good Men that is playing his
Yeah.
part. What is that? But I like the pit of despair just because it was very interesting. Again, it goes back to a polite, even though he killed Inigo's father, he's sitting there doing this for science. He
Hmm.
wants to know more about that. Uh, but the suction cup thing was just kind of weird, anyways. But I
Yeah. I
like that
just
part.
it. It was a little different when I saw it. Uh, the thing that like the machine strapped on him literally just looked like jars just pushed up against his body, and I was like, how is this exactly supposed to work? you know, which I think that's
Now you
also
see
probably
all.
the 21st century coming out in me.
Well, you also, but now, whenever time I see that now, I think of like Olympic swimmers who do those different types. You see these suction cup like marks on their shoulders
Yeah,
and their
they're
arms. I'm like, oh, okay, well, okay, that's fine.
yeah, some type of massage or something. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, and then which he Humperdinck comes in. I had to think of what his name was for a second. Humperdinck comes in. I don't know how I forget that name. Humperdinck comes in because he's mad and it turns it up, and he screams out. I mean, man, he's got some lungs because the whole kingdom heard him.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah.
But then Buttercup realizes that Humperdinck did not search for Wesley and calls him a coward. Enraged, Humperdinck imprisons Buttercup and tortures Wesley to a death-like state. Inigo and Fezzik, who follow Wesley's screams through the forest, find his body and bring him to Miracle Max, a folk healer who Humperdinck recently fired. The mostly dead Wesley is revived by Max, though he is severely weakened.
And this is this is where I done forgot his name here.
Billy Crystal.
Inigo. Oh, this is what
Oh no,
Inigo.
Inigo. Sorry,
He's
yeah.
sticking out here in the woods with a sword. Stood up, guide me, Father, and lead me the way. And he just happens to find the tree and poke the tree and lean his head against the door handle.
Again, it's a fairy tale,
It
but
is a fairy tale. I give it to you, but I'm like, man, like this is great. It is, and like he said, that is an impressive set of lungs on Wesley. If he is able to scream from 10 feet underground and be heard several a mile away or however far away it is.
I just again when we get to Mad Max, or what was it? Was his name Mad Max or
Miracle
the
Max.
Miracle
Miracle
Max?
Max,
Mad
yeah,
Max is a very different character.
very, very.
very different character, but just they talked about a Miracle Max and his wife, and I can't remember. I know it's Billy Crystal, and it's not Carol King, but I can't remember who the other actress is. It's they were all improvised, and they said they had to cut. There's a lot that's on the floor because it wasn't necessarily, let's say, PG, but just a mutton and lettuce and tomato sandwich. Just different stuff that he said. But you talk about a line that I use all the time is whenever she comes out and she's saying liar, liar. I mean that I laugh. Oh, I laugh so hard every single time she comes. I know she's coming out, but it makes me laugh every single time, as well as enjoy storming the castle. That's golly. I mean, you talk about stealing the scenes and stealing the show, and being in there for what 5 minutes of the movie. Oh,
Hmm.
that was I like that.
I had to think that this is Suggs and Callie. If you know Suggs and his wife, this is Suggs and Callie when they're talking about anything lovey-dovey related or whatever. That Suggs has nothing to do with it, and she comes out and she's all about it. Liar! I think he's muted his headphones so he can't hear us anymore. For her.
I'm right here. I'm listening. I'm just giving y'all a chance to talk.
Well, you fire away. What about Miracle Max? Do you have any thoughts on Miracle Max?
Yeah, I absolutely love this character. It's probably my favorite character in the whole. I love the fact that he's not gonna do it, and then it gets to the point where we're doing this to screw over Humperdinck. Let's do it. But he still takes the money.
Yeah, I do love the big flume thing, the air that he used to fire the force, and he sticks it in his mouth and is like using it. And I'm like, man, I feel bad for it because that thing has to be dusty. It has to be like full of smoke or whatever else. And I'm like, dude, like you're puffing air with that thing into his lungs, like.
Man, the teletype's going fast right now.
Sorry. I'm gonna get a new I'm gonna get a new keyboard just for you guys, just so y'all can't hear it. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get the Blockbusters Classic Movie Podcast keyboard.
Is it gonna be the theme colors and everything?
Everything. It's gonna have our logos on it. It's gonna have Ernie's Bitmoji on the E, Dakota's Bitmoji on the D. Hey, look, the E, D, and C. That's right on. It's one little line. Look at that on the keyboard.
Sure is. I do also love in this scene though that he was just like he was mostly dead. Like that's how they wrote off him being, him getting killed. He's mostly dead. Like he's not all the way there. He's just halfway there. He's like on the brink of, just on the edge of death, And, which, like you said, it's a whole fairy tale thing. But I was like, all right, well, you know.
Well, as Wesley, Inigo, and Fezzik storm the castle, Humperdinck panics and orders the in-progress wedding ceremony to be shortened. Inigo tracks down Rugen, who taunts him about his father's death. Despite his injuries, Inigo eventually kills Rugen. Wesley locates Buttercup, who believes she is married to Humperdinck and is about to commit suicide. Wesley assures her the marriage is invalid because she never completed her wedding vows. Humperdinck finds them and challenges Wesley to a duel, but Wesley willingly stands and intimidates Humperdinck into surrendering. Inigo finds Wesley and Buttercup, and Fezzik procures 4 horses for their escape. Having killed Rugen, Inigo is unsure what to do with his life. Wesley offers him the Dread Pirate Robert's title. As dawn arises, the reunited Wesley and Buttercup share a passionate kiss. So the movie turns into basically a heist movie, which I found interesting. And I also found interesting that the guy that you think is he is the main character. He's the hero. He doesn't go in swashbuckling, just beating everybody up, to get to his princess. He literally cannot move.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, this is gonna last like 10 minutes. No, it lasts the whole. But it made me laugh. I liked it. I think
I liked when she was kissing him and she was holding his head and he let it go. And, thunk.
Like,
Yeah, his facial expressions were on point for the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I like how they're setting up for the. They need his ideas, so they're setting up for the heist, kind of storming the castle. And he's like, this is impossible, with what we have to work with. And then they mentioned the wheelbarrow, and he's like, why didn't you list that among our assets?
Now, if we just had a Holocaust cloak. Oh, I got one.
Where'd you get that? Oh, Miracle Max said I could have it. It fit me. Oh,
because Miracle Max is nowhere near 7'4", so I don't know why he had a.
Yeah, why did he have it in the first place?
Yeah,
which seems like a weird thing to just give somebody. It seems like something that would be stupid expensive,
And then we get to the point where Inigo finally meets Ruben. This is the guy he's been chasing for 20 years. The guy that killed his father. This is the duel we've been waiting for. And he just turns around and runs.
Oh, yeah, but before he does that, though, okay, so Inigo takes out all the men, and then you see Rugen. He sets up in his stance, like, okay, we're doing this. Then he turns and runs. You're like, like you said, I was like, all right, we're about to see a massive sword fight. Then, no, he just takes off. That was hilarious. Just the setup, like, okay, I'm getting ready to fight you, but nope, I'll pass.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get the fame, which we'd already heard the quote, but we get the fame. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Over and over and over again until
Hello.
Over
he
and
Yeah.
over.
until he finally does kill him.
Look in that whole scene there that I was watching. So he got when he threw the knife at him and stuck it in his stomach. It was in his lower right abdomen, right?
Oh, here comes nurse talk.
Yeah, this is 100% from. But I was sitting here and I was looking at it and I was like, dude, when did his left shoulder get bloody? When did
I, th-
when
I
did he?
thought I thought he
Oh, that
threw
was
the knife at
afterwards.
his. I thought he threw the knife at his left shoulder.
No, it was the knife went in the stomach, and then when he went up against the wall, then Rugen pierced his left shoulder. Then he
Okay.
pierced his right shoulder. It looked like Inigo tried to send it off with his sword, but he didn't have enough strength to. So that's when he got his shoulders stabbed. Is whenever
Okay,
the left shoulder, I think we saw Rugen, but we saw the back of Inigo, so you didn't get to see that. And that's when he stabbed him in the left shoulder, and then the next he stabbed him in the right shoulder after that.
okay, this makes more sense now because I honestly thought he was just parrying him and that it didn't make any contact with him. I was super confused by that when I was watching it.
Or
Uh,
we just don't want to go to the pain. Is that what it was? Don't not fight to the death, fight to the pain, or what it was? Is that what Wesley said?
Oh yeah,
fight to the pain. Hey,
Fight
yeah.
to the
He just he
here's the
disappears. How did he get to the room? That's what.
y'all are underestimating two things. One, the power of revenge with Inigo, and then the power of love.
The power of true love. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, I don't know how he got there either.
Oh, so
I'm just sitting there imagining him crawling with his chin.
Yes. Yes. He's a little inchworm just.
I think it's more impressive. How did he get up on the bed?
Yes.
Yeah, laid perfectly back in the bed. But then, like during this whole scene when he's talking to Humperdinck, and then he just stands up and holds the sword at him, and Humperdinck's like, yeah, you know what?
I'm
Never
done.
mind, I'm done, and just
Yep.
sits down.
I flip my cape up. I'll sit down. Okay, I'm done.
And then after they tie him up, then we find out because what was it she was wanting him to do, and he was like, I can't remember what it was now.
Why don't you? No, that was she was asking why he kissed him whenever he
Yeah.
was in bed. I can't remember, but that's when he
Oh,
said.
somebody,
he
I think
couldn't walk.
Inigo. It didn't Inigo look at him and say, "Hey, help him stand up." And she's like, "Why?"
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's,
I knew it. I did.
and then we randomly look out the window, and there's Fezzik with his 4 horses. Like, hey, I just got these.
Hey,
Mhm.
pretty lady.
Let's go.
Remember when I kidnapped you and put you in a Vulcan death grip? I'm here to save you now.
And then they jump out the window. When they jumped out, I'm like, are they just about to jump down on these horses with no, like, there's at least not even a saddle or anything. And
Hey,
then-
Andre just did something right. He can
Yeah.
catch him again now too.
Which again was funny how Wesley went off. He just kind of leaned and just went, he just fell off. Everybody else kind of
Mhm.
jumped out. He just went, okay, I can barely feel my body, so I'm just gonna fall back and
Mhm.
land. Nobody catches me.
And then we give Wesley gives the Dread Pirate Roberts title to Inigo, which I didn't go through that earlier, but I did. Probably the best part of the whole Fire Swamp was him telling how
Yeah.
the story
Yeah.
of Dread Pirate and what it really was. I mean, that was interesting, and it makes a lot of sense. That's something I could believe. Although
It's a perfect character arc for Inigo now too.
it does
Yeah.
make
Like
me
he said, after revenge, what do I do?
It does make me wonder because he was like, when I became the Dread Pirate Roberts, the guy that before me stayed with me as my, first mate to make sure people knew that I was. So it's like now he gives it to Inigo. Is he going to do the same thing, or is he going to stay with Buttercup?
Nice, damn with Buttercup.
Buttercup.
Don't you know? True love prevails always.
Womp womp.
I'm going to name my dog Buttercup.
But I mean, as far as this whole entire movie, the Inigo character is the glue that makes I think this
Yes.
movie really kind of
Yeah.
really go.
It really does.
Because you have all this fantastical stuff that's going on, but the search for the Six Finger Man and the passion that he has for that, the love that he had for his dad, that's the true love that you can see that's going through this movie. And just that's what. And again, Mandy Patinkin, however you say his last name, he's a fantastic actor. He may be troublesome off the screen or whatever with his other actors, but I mean, you can tell he's a fantastic actor, and I think it showed throughout this whole entire movie.
Which, if you really sit down and kind of stop about this throughout this whole movie, and I know this is 100% like a English major type of thing, like looking into things, but like you do, like each different character does represent a different type of love. You know,
Mm.
if you think about Vizzini, like he loves himself way too much and thinks way too highly of himself. You have, Dread Pie Roberts. I can never remember this. Wesley, who loves the damsel in distress. You have Inigo Montoya, who loves his father and is seeking revenge out of love for that. And then you have Andre, who has to learn how to love himself because he believes he can do something smart. Like it really kind of does give a full circle, like of showing the different, four different characterizations of love in that sense.
Dude, look at Dakota bringing it strong. He's closing this sucker out strong. That's what I'm talking about. Baby.
As a journalist, I've never been more proud in you.
I appreciate it.
That
Thanks,
is
guys.
definitely a good wrap up right there.
Wait till I bring out my Christian, my theology dissertation on this.
Well, technically, I have one last paragraph here. It's not even a paragraph, it's a sentence. It says, the sick grandson eagerly asks his grandfather to read him the story again. The next day, his grandfather replies, as you wish, because if I could spend time with my grandfather, I would too, which he did. I don't know why I said that like he was dead. But it did. It didn't. Well, I just thought at the beginning of the movie when he was upset that his grandfather was come seeing, I was like,
well, I mean,
actually,
someone who's never had an opportunity to spend time with his grandpa, I've never had any opportunity. I've only spent time with my grandmothers when they were alive. I know to see somebody spend time with their grandfather like that, and then also, and Caleb, you can see this also, and hopefully in the future, Dakota, you can too. Seeing your child spend time with your parents is just it's heartwarming. It's an awesome thing to see, and so for the grandfather to come over and just spend some time and know the youth and the youth of the child, just like grandpa's here and he's reading me a book without sports, and then just the bond that this one little book kind of makes of it. It's it's perfect. I like that ending.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that brings us to the end. Sorry if I haven't been talking as much as my co-host would like, but as you could probably hear in the background, my son is kind of sleepy, so been dealing with that. But still, look, I think
I usually cry too at night when I'm sleepy, so it doesn't get any better the older you are.
Does Terry give you like a warm glass of milk and read you a story to go to bed?
No, she's out at 8:00 at night. She act older than me. She's asleep at 8. So I mean, I'm the one that's still up.
Well, anyways, so that brings an end to Dakota's pick of The Princess Bride. I've poked fun at the movie, but like I said, it's not a bad movie. It's not, it's probably not something I'll watch again, but it's not a bad movie. I don't want people to get the wrong idea to think that I think it's a bad movie, but I guess that bring what are you looking at, Ferg?
My wife heard what I just said.
Hey, I'm actually awake.
Ferg's in trouble.
That happens all the time, so
Well, I guess that brings us to rankings, right? Isn't that what we do next?
Yep.
Ferg, can you keep me on track?
We rate it, and then we give it to whatever category.
All right. So, who goes first?
You usually go first.
You know what? What if I wanted to go last? Okay.
Well, you shouldn't have started going first then.
I didn't know that was going to be a set thing. Fine, I'll go first.
Okay, let's do this.
No. I'll go first.
It's Dakota's. Let Dakota choose who goes first.
What the frick? When it's my movie, I have to go first. But it's Dakota's movie. We'll let him choose who wants to go first.
Wait. Major Leagues, you chose to go last, so don't.
But last week at Friday Night Lights, you were like, "It's your movie. Go back to normal. You got to go first."
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess we all get a Major League, and
So I'm
I
just
don't
saying,
care.
in 2 straight weeks, last week you said it's my movie, I got to go first. This week you said it's Dakota's movie. Let's let Dakota pick who goes
I don't
first.
I don't see your point. So
Double standards. That's all I'm saying. Fine, Dakota,
and
pick who you would like to go first.
or just let Caleb go first, and that way we'll keep our same thing. Let him complain some more.
Go ahead, Suggs.
Oh, just for that, I'm giving it a 3. No, um, initially I was gonna give it a 6, but to me, I think Ernie said it at the very beginning of the podcast, and I
Hmm.
agree. To me, this is the epitome of a cult classic movie. It did not do well at the box office, but it has grown obviously a following over the years. It's very well quotable. You've seen it in pop culture. Um, and since we are, we'll get to this in a second, but our ratings are what we rate a cult classic is a 6.5 to an 8. So I'm going to rate it a 6.5 because I think it is a cult classic movie, and I think a lot of people like it and a lot of people enjoy it. So to me, it deserves to be in cult classic. So I'm going to give it a 6.5.
Like I said, coming into this, uh, I was trying to blow it up in my mind because I thought it was a lot better than it was when I came into this. And so my original thought coming into this was 6.5, but the more I watched it, the more I enjoyed it. I don't know if I find it better than most of the films that we've already seen, but I think it is good for certain people. I think it is rewatchable. To me, it's not like for you, Caleb. It's not a rewatchable. My wife doesn't like it either. It's not a rewatchable for her either. And so I'm going with the 7.5.
So, I think I was kind of the same way. The whole time I was watching this movie, I was trying to think about where I was going to put this at, and I kind of I went with two or three for things, and I think just my enjoyment out of it because I definitely, if a lot of people don't know this, but I play D&D about
Mm.
once a month with some of my friends, and you could definitely see like D&D popping up throughout this entire movie. Like right there in the end scenes uh, where Wesley stands up and they're talking to this, and he stands up from in front of him. Like I can 100% see seeing a dungeon master look at somebody and said, "All right, roll an intimidation check with that." Like I could see a D&D coded throughout this entire movie. But with that being said, I think I was going to give it a 7 was where I was going to put it at because I really I agree it really is truly just a cult classic movie, but it's not that big of a it's not like a blockbuster. It's not just something that I'm like, you know what, I really want to watch Princess Bride, but the people who love it, man, they love it.
Yeah.
Man,
I,
Dungeons and Dragons, holes, Dakota's just bringing out the references
I
that
tell you
I
what.
would never in a million years think of when I'm watching
I'm
this
telling you,
movie.
man. I'm telling you, man. I was watching this movie this whole time, thinking, man, I could see that happening. When we're playing D&D, I could 100% see making a roll for that.
Well, that brings, much to the chagrin of Ernie, that brings our score to a very even 7,
Yeah, I don't like that's too plain. Now I want to go with
which
I want to go with like a 7.75 to make it weird, but yeah.
I think I know where this puts it, but I'm going to ask anyways. Where does that put us on our movies?
This is our eighth movie, and it puts us at the eighth
Yeah,
spot.
yeah,
Which again, that goes back to this. We're still all the movies we've picked
yeah.
are good movies.
No, a 7 is a
Hmm.
very solid score, but
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, out of the 8 movies we've done, this is by far the least one.
This is truly, I think,
yeah.
one of those movies where you have people that would walk over hot coals to call it a 10, and at the same time, people go, "This is awful," and it's a 1.
Yep.
The other
Yeah.
movies, I
Yep.
don't think there's that much dichotomy in this, but this is one of the movies I think there truly is a split of
Again,
how people view this.
I go back and I say if I had watched this when I was 7 or 8 or so and had childhood memories of it, I think I would think more highly of it.
Yeah. And I
It
think
is,
that kind of shows with me and my wife too, because like my wife loves this movie, can quote this movie the whole time, is telling me all about the movie, telling me all about these things. And I'm sitting here like, Yeah, man, he just barely bonked him on the head and he fell over. Like,
I was joking that your wife picked the movie, but you're starting to make me feel like she actually did pick this movie.
I'd rest assured she did not pick it. I picked it for myself. But
Okay, if you say so. Well, anyways, that brings us to a 7. So let's see our categories. That puts us. Let's see. Blockbuster is the highest. That's 9 or higher. 8 to 9 is popcorn. What's it? Popcorn worthy. Popcorn.
I just put popcorn.
I
No, I put.
don't.
Excuse me. I will type popcorn worthy in there.
Something like that. Yeah.
There you go.
6.5 to 8 is cult classic. 5 to 6.5 is matinee only, and then less than 5 is straight to video. This puts it at cult classic, which I think we all agree. This
Yeah.
movie is the
Mhm.
epitome of a cult classic.
Oh
So
yeah.
very fittingly fits there. Look, hey, we're wrapped up in less than an hour and 10 minutes. Look at us go.
Hey.
If
Well,
we
Look at
ever,
us. It's an
It was a
accomplishment.
movie that was only 90 minutes long too, so
yes, that was the best part
Yeah,
about
it
the movie.
was.
it is good, and that's one of the things from the 80s that you miss.
No,
It's
no,
90
no,
minutes.
yeah. You don't. Hey, look, one of my favorite movies of all time is Rocky Four, and that's the epitome of a popcorn movie. It is all
Mm.
montages and boxing fight scenes, and it's only an hour and a half long. That's a popcorn flick right there. But anyways, so let's see. That wraps it up. Ernie's pick is next. Ernie, tell the good people what we will be reviewing next week. I know some are excited about it. Of the
We
tens of listeners that we have, I know some of them have been looking forward to this.
we are going into a distant future, not so far away, and that's going with Star Wars. So you had us in the 2000s. I'm going to drag us into the 70s and go 1977's space opera Star Wars.
Woo!
AKA
Dakota Lowry not
let's
gonna be
bite
a
off
Star.
First time.
He's not gonna be a Star
First
Wars
time.
virgin anymore.
I was just I will be popping my cherry with this one.
Wow,
If it wasn't
that is graphic. Let's go.
if it wasn't football season, I would make you come over to my house and we would watch all 3 of the original trilogy back to back to back.
Okay, look.
Hey, look,
don't do
man.
that to the poor man.
No, what? What do you mean do that? You should.
I have the first 6 episodes right here, which
If you're
brings
not-
me to ask because this shows you how little I know about Star Wars. This is the original Star Wars, right? Like episode
Yes, it
3 or
starts
whatever.
with 4. It goes 4, 5,
Four.
6, then 1, 2,
4.
3.
Okay.
A New Hope, that which is Star Wars, which I guess I should say Star Wars: A New Hope, Episode 4. Then you have Return of the Empire. What am I saying? Good gravy.
Return.
Return of the Jedi.
Well, I
Isn't
got
it?
that's the
Return
Empire
to the
Strikes
Empire.
Empire Strikes Back, then Return of the Jedi. Sorry, words. I'm not good with them.
Anyways, looking very. By the way, watching all 3 back to back to back is something you should do every few years. Okay, that's just, especially if around Star Wars Day. That's a good time to do it.
What is Star Wars Day?
May the 4th.
It's
Duh.
it's right after NSYNC Day. It's gonna be my. Yeah,
Oh.
let's wrap it up on that one, baby.
There it is. That's what it is.
Anyways, yes. So Star Wars will be our next episode. Looking forward to that. Again, thanks to I know we joke around, but we do have a few people that listen to us, and we appreciate every single one of you.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, got anything to say?
No.
All right, sounds good. Well, it's another great episode. Thank May Force for picking this one, and we will see you guys next week.
Have a good evening.
Oh, he dipped out.
He's still recording though.
You are still recording.